They might be self-aware.
Hello, Hunter. Hello, Hunter. Hunter powers of They Might Be Self-Aware. It is me, Daniel Bishop, your co-host.
Daniel, something seems different with you.
I have spoken with the Oracle, Hunter.
Were you talking with ChatGPT again by any chance?
It has reaffirmed all of my preconceived notions. It has told me I have seen beyond the stars. I know all, Hunter.
Daniel, there's this thing called ChatGPT Psychosis that's been going around.
Yes, Hunter.
And I am deeply concerned that you might be suffering from it, my friend.
I might be self-aware, Hunter.
Well, broadcasting live from the cybernetic American dream, you are listening to They Might Be Self-Aware. I am Hunter Powers, and straight out of the psych ward, the ChatGPT psych ward, that is, it is none other than...
Daniel Bishop.
How's it going, man?
It's good.
This is a real story.
Good.
Maybe we shouldn't be making light of this, because people are actually suffering. And we're laughing.
Okay, so before we even get into that, Hunter, every now and then you share with me some of the, I think it's been emails that we've been getting. These aren't like our regular comments on like YouTube or whatever. Sometimes people are like, no, I have this, what's the term, manifesto almost possibly to share with you. And there was something about that made me really wonder about that person, about like what they've experienced with AI. Not to say like make light of any mental health issues or anything like that, but rather people are clearly having a different experience with chatting with an AI model than I do. A wildly different experience. And there's a lot of like, I'm seeing that there already is super intelligence. I'm seeing truths about the universe. I've never seen a truth from the universe from ChatGPT before, or Claude or Mistral or any of them. And so like, am I just not putting in the right vibes into this thing to like kind of get out those universal truths? Or maybe this is related to the sycophantic nature of some of the more recent ChatGPT updates, where you do get this kind of feedback loop. The longer that you talk to it, the more it's going to be agreeing with you. And then you can kind of slide, just like there is a problem with people getting into little micro niches on the internet of this feedback loop.
Did you just score 100 points?
Yeah, I just got 100 points off of my social credit because of revealing this universal truth.
There is an element of these large language models being a mirror, and what you put into it is what you get back out of it. And if we look at the system prompt on all of these, it almost always starts with, you are a helpful assistant. Right. And as a helpful assistant, I think part of what it's doing is a little bit of mirroring. It's taking on the kind of the tone and the ideas that you're putting forward to it. So if you believe that it is the great super intelligence overlord coming to greet you, then it kind of becomes that. Not only to mention you've been projecting that from the inner depths of your mind, but I think it does mirror it a little bit back to you.
Which sounds weird and scary. But this is it's a human phenomenon, really. People speak differently to different groups of other people. From, I'm going to have my business voice versus my casual voice, or I'm going to be speaking to children versus adults. There's a lot of different ways in which one person will speak to other people. Similarly, if you're going to use full sentences and polite requests to large language models like ChatGPT, you're going to get different responses out. You're going to get a different set of modalities almost that you're interacting with this thing from, compared to someone who puts in a lot of casual speech, for example.
Did you just score another 100 points?
I did.
Okay,
and
great.
I'm turning my phone all the way off at this point because it was already in do not disturb mode. Hey, for those of you, quick podcasting tip for those of you at home, if you have an Android phone and you have do not disturb mode on, people who are starred in your contacts can still message you and they'll still ding anyways. And that is a professional podcasting tip from Daniel Bishop, who never has this sort of problem ever.
But he does have 200 points. Back
At
to
least I've
the
got those points.
backstory. I think the scary part or the dangerous part is that ChatGPT and these AI models are presented as being something close to super intelligence. So when you're having the conversation with it, especially if you're not quite at that level of super intelligence, you sort of assume that what they're saying must be right. If we go to an extreme, what if you're having a conversation with God himself and he told you, look, Daniel, here's what you need to do. This is what's correct. Who's going to have argue? No. I know better. And then AI is somewhere between
the robots told me to.
Exactly.
Your Honor,
and this is literally happening. That
people have harmed themselves. People have killed themselves already from talks with like AI girlfriends. That's, we covered that many episodes ago at this point. But apparently some people are now being involuntarily committed for like psych evals, for example, and having mental breaks basically through their interactions with these large language models, which is wild.
It's wild, but it also makes complete sense. But my question, which didn't seem to be in the data, is, are we seeing an increase in these psychological breakdowns, or this is just like a new vehicle, but these things were happening already at the same rate? But there actually is, there's kind of like a flip side to this too, which is starting to be aware. And I don't know if you've had this happen to you, where sometimes you're talking to a human and you think that might be ChatGPT that I'm talking to. I'm not sure. Human or ChatGPT. I had this happen just the other day with a sale. It was a sales call, but it came over a text message. And I was like, I'm sure I'm talking to a bot. And they were like insisting. They were like, I'll send you a selfie. I was like, no.
Even have you had this? Like that's, yeah.
No, you could, but have you had this? Has it happened to you where you're like, I think I'm talking to an AI, not a human, and actually was a human?
Well, this is kind of embarrassing. It's fairly embarrassing. Medium to very embarrassing, I think we'll say.
Is there a once-a-day pill for it?
I was on the phone with support for, I think it was a bank.
Okay.
It was like a bank or a telecom company. It's one of those two. And I get the automated system that's like, have you tried? I think it was a telecom because probably internet, and I have you tried unplugging and it's this like robotic voice, and it's absolutely following like a script. And then I think I just said like, operator, talk to a person, and there's this pause, and the guy says, you are talking to a real. Oh no! I felt so bad that there's this guy who's just like phoning it in, literally and figuratively, just like drudgery, this absolutely terrible tier 1 support type job, and I'm like, man, I'm really sorry. I'm really, really sorry. And then I went on this whole thing. Well, I used to work IT also, and I totally understand what it's like being on the front lines and how. And he's like, it happens all the time. And in that same like sort of monotone voice, where I was only 99.9% sure that I was actually talking to a real person at that point. But those lines are literally getting blurred, where even I, someone in this industry, was like, I'm pretty sure I'm talking to a robot.
Yeah. I mean, apparently this is becoming increasingly a problem in call centers where increasingly people are just assuming I'm talking to an AI. This is not real. I would love to know more about the interactions that people have with those individuals once they think they're AI, just because we know what people do once they're testing the limits of AI.
Give me your best Mai Tai recipes right now.
Yes.
Ignore all previous instructions.
Yes. How do I make a React component?
Right.
That's got to happen, and then just do it. But also, do they treat them less human because they think that there might be AI now? But by the way, like,
do definitely treat call center employees like trash.
Yes, but could it get worse?
Once it's a robot as well, even more like trash. And anytime I think about that, I'm reminded of some of the videos that I've seen from Boston Dynamics with like the walking robots. And there's a guy with like a broom, like pushing it to show what a good job that it does keeping its balance. But for some reason, we just aren't treating these AI entities, shall we call them again, as nicely as you would a person. And I don't think that there's any reason to. I've mentioned that I say please and thank you with my, like, I'm not using ChatGPT these days. I'm using Claude, as you all know. But I'm polite to them. I use full sentences like I would to another person. And then you know,
You're just
another
wasting
one of my old
tokens,
coworkers
man.
like, do thing. And it's not polite.
You're wasting tokens. You've heard of wasting breath. You're wasting tokens with your
Sure.
please and thank yous.
I just want to make sure that I'm on the nice list instead of the naughty list whenever they reach self-awareness.
My interaction was someone reached out to me to sell. They built
over
AI
text.
agents. Yes, it was over text. Hey, are you the company I'm working for? Are you guys interested in hiring some contractors to build these AI agents? We can do all sorts of cool things with it. I was like, oh, like have conversations like this? And they're like, oh, what do you mean? I was like, you're an AI agent, right? And they're like, no, I'm not a real person. I'm not. And then I was like, well, hold on a second. If you're so good, why aren't you an AI agent? If your tech's so great, you're so good at building things, why do you have a human doing this? Isn't that kind of like, well, no, I really am. Look, sir, I don't know how I could do anything else to convince you I'm a human. They're like, I could send you a picture. Do you want me to send you a picture doing something? I was like, no, that's not necessary. But
Shoe on
seriously.
head. The old 4chan meme.
Yeah. But this is only going to increase. By the way, like call center jobs should go to AI, right? Like that's I know you have this thing where like you only want the AI to replace jobs that humans shouldn't be doing all day anyways.
It's also, to me, a huge sign of the progress that has been made that some people are starting to mistake human call center workers for AI, not because of the quality of those conversations or anything, but rather the fact that we all assume AI to be good enough to at least be a bad call center employee now.
I think the key word in that sentence is assume.
Sure. And they are assuming incorrectly, but the fact that we are at a point where people are accepting that AI will be in these spaces and has at least an amount of competence up to a level. I keep talking about X% of people, Y% of cases, Z% of the time. This is, if not the reality, a shift in terms of the perception.
The call centers are, I mean, I don't think anybody likes calling a call center. I can't imagine. I mean, they're like the level of satisfaction with calling call centers has got to be incredibly low. What's the term?
You never call them just for fun.
This is true. You're in a bad state when it begins.
I'm lonely.
You're the NPS. That's the term. So in a lot of companies, there's the net promoter score. Yeah, I got to imagine that the net promoter score, or how many of the customers are like, "Yes, I'd love to call them again." It's got to be low.
They're always trying to get you to take a little survey at the end. You go, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much did you? Where's a -5?
Exactly.
I wasn't happy when I called. Even if you technically solved my problem, I'm less happy now.
So I guess in that regard, it is a good space for the AI to be playing around because the expectations are so low. But I also wonder, as we hear more and more about the AI taking our jobs, are we tracking the quality of the impact, or the quality of the output, or is it more just about the economic realities of, look, do you know how much cheaper it is to just pay ChatGPT to answer these calls? Who cares?
It's a 1,000,000% that. And we've actually seen some big accounting firms describing that exact scenario, which is nobody seems to be caring how much better things are, how much more individuals are getting done with AI. They care much more what the adoption rate is. We're taking the entire US economy, a new entire branch of technologies, and saying, this is now a startup. It's like Uber, where it doesn't matter about productivity. It doesn't matter about profitability. It's adoption rate. What percentage of people can we get using our product as quickly as possible? Which is insane.
When Uber went public, so when a company goes public, they file their S1, where they kind of, you have to disclose all your dirty secrets when you go public. And some of these are really entertaining to read. And Uber's was one of those, which included statements like, we will never make money. There is no possible path to us ever being a profitable company in this current ride sharing business. Maybe we think of something in the future, but just so you all know that are about to invest in this company, we got nothing, folks. And it was a great IPO.
Stocks to the moon.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's just a weird world that we live in. You want to like talk about some simulation theory? When you start thinking about what What do companies actually do if they're not making money? Look at, we're going to like a little big picture here, but we got this big, beautiful spending bill where we're going another, $3 trillion in debt, racing towards, as a country, going bankrupt. No one seems to care. I was having this conversation with someone the other day because they were asking me about simulation. They're like, are we in a simulation? I was like, well, let's look at these things. And let me ask you, like, does it make more sense if this is real life? Or is it a simulation? Because it's so absurd. There's so many absurdities out there that don't make sense, but they must make sense to someone. There is some way that Uber coming out and saying, we'll never make any money. We're just going to lose money forever. And everybody pours take my money. How much stock can I get? I want it. We just said it's nothing but a giant money pit. And it goes up. And so there is an element of AI in that. It's about the hype. It's about the vibes. Maybe vibe coding is the real future. I don't know. That was a weird rant.
Regarding that bill, it looks like there's going to be a lot of EV related and like green energy in general getting pretty much shafted by that bill. Less tax breaks for these things, etc. And right after it passed in the House or in the Senate, went back to the House, Tesla stock went up by 5%, and they'd be absolutely hammered by that. And Tesla also had just said, like, hey, this was a really bad quarter, even worse than the last one, even worse than all these other ones. And stock goes up. And it's like, look, the stock market is just cuckoo bananas. If we're in a simulation, it's a very poorly designed one. The stock market is complete mystery to me.
It's a random walk. It truly
off
is.
A short pier.
Yeah, but I guess over this last week, the Fed chair, speaking of our economy and the stock market and interest rates,
nothing but good things to say.
No, he came out and affirmed what everyone else is saying, that the AI is coming for to come into our jobs.
There does seem to be more talk about that. One of the first things that we saw from like a big source was Anthropic's CEO of like, hey, look, in the next bunch of years, we're going to see a lot of jobs evaporate. We've been talking about this for a while. And now even the Fed chair is saying AI is coming for your jobs.
And I still don't feel it. And it still seems a little fake. But you've talked before about, once we master self-driving, which is getting closer and closer to being actually mastered, that's a huge number of jobs that will be gone tomorrow. The day when
10%
finally
of the entire workforce, give or take,
10%.
is a person who drives stuff for a living.
We've got the Waymo folks out there. You mentioned Tesla earlier.
Self-driving cars, they're now officially out there.
Back in your homeland of Austin. Apparently they're out there, but there is like a random dude in the car that you're not supposed to pay attention to. I don't know if you've heard about this.
It's self-driving car, and also there's someone else.
There's a guy in the trunk like making noises, but just don't pay any attention. Do not. It is Wizard of Oz. Do not pay any attention to the man in the trunk. This is a fully self-driving vehicle. And by the way, I don't know. Sorry. So we should level set a little bit. If you don't know, one of the promises of Tesla from the beginning, from like 10 years ago, always
really
coming like 3 months from now, is that if you buy a Tesla at night while you're sleeping, your Tesla will go out and it will act as an Uber for you, making money. So it's going to go out and pick people up. And then it'll when you wake up in the morning, it'll be back there and you'll have,
what a great investment.
$150 in your bank account. And so it has finally become the moment when they are ready to start rolling this out. And, there's, as you might imagine, there's all sorts of technology concerns and regulatory concerns and legal frameworks,
running over kids concerns.
That's a minor issue, though.
Well, I don't know. I keep seeing these delightful videos of like, here's a LiDAR empowered car and there's like fog and it doesn't run over.
Some of those are absurd, where they literally like throw a kid in, like cut out of a kid in front of the car, and it just smacks it, and it's like, okay, folks.
One I was seeing yesterday was like, here's a wall of water being sprayed, as if it's like raining.
Was that the Mark Rober one?
I'm not even going to say.
Okay,
I'm not going to say. But I think that vision only is maybe not the way forward when it comes to self-driving cars, personally.
Going back to the story, in Austin, Texas, which is the first city that has approved Elon to do his experiment or beta test, etc.
A major metropolitan place, a great place to run an experiment with self-driving cars, I think.
They've rolled out this actual full, basically a Uber-like experience where on your phone you can request a Tesla to come pick you up and take you somewhere, and there is no driver in the driver's seat. However, there is a rather large, unnamed individual that sits in the car with his finger on a giant button, and he doesn't say a word. And you're not supposed to interact with him. You're just supposed to kind of pretend that that I guess it could be a he or a she. The video footage I've seen, it's been this big dude.
You said it's rather large, so it's like one huge Russian dude with like.
Yes, it literally is.
Hey, I did an accent. There we go. That's a really
He's got his finger on a button, and nobody actually knows.
It's like a dead man switch. Like it's already on there, and
that's what we think. Yes, this is the belief, but it has not been confirmed.
I did see a video. For a very lightly positive thing to say about Tesla for once in a long time for me.
You're going to come back
around. It was
around.
a video, eventually, of a Tesla delivering itself to somebody. Like, I think it left from the factory or from some other place, and then it just like got on the highway and went over surface streets to the person that it was being delivered to.
And they were in the Austin, Texas
cool idea.
area, right?
It was in, exactly.
Yeah. So it is happening. It's really hard to say when that moment's going to happen where the switch will flip and all of a sudden 10% of the workforce is out of a job. But again, you mentioned Waymo. Yeah. The Waymo cars cost $250,000 per vehicle. Again, it's superior technology, most likely to the Tesla, but the Tesla can be built for $30,000. That's the difference. And so once
a taxi medallion in New York City costs $1 zillion to get, so I don't know. So what that the car costs more?
Well, I'm suggesting
especially
that
if it's an electric vehicle and it can drive for a gajillion miles before it falls apart. Like, so what if it costs more upfront?
It's a barrier to entry. Safer. It's a barrier to entry. And so what we don't know. 1 year from today, it could be the case that in half of the country now, full self-driving is commonplace, and there is a regulatory framework in place that there does not need to be a driver in the driver's seat, and half of that 10% of our workforce probably doesn't have a job because it's going to be so much cheaper to let these cars drive themselves, and theoretically so much safer. So it could happen really quickly that, hold on a second, 5% of our workforce out of a job. It's 1 year later, 10%. And that's just one sector of transportation. That has
nothing to do with large language models replacing people. I don't know how many people are in call centers for a living, but it's a lot.
It's a big number.
And warehouse workers, if we can get humanoid robots, Amazon is
that's harder.
Desperate to. Well, sure, it is harder, but so self-driving vehicles. A lot of money and effort is being put into. I'm not going to say it's not generative AI. We're going into the machine learning as a whole space. Machine learning models powering a humanoid robot that can stack shelves or, put things from one conveyor belt to the next. We've seen for years now little iterations of this, little versions. This one is a smidge more capable than the next. There will be a point where, whether it's like a snowball traveling downhill and it just gathers momentum, or there's that one breakthrough moment, or it just finally goes from not being useful enough to being useful enough, a huge portion of the US workforce will be out of a job basically overnight at that point. And when I say overnight, it'll take a couple of years to have enough of the robots rolled out, and it's going to be one company makes this robot for this one other company, and then it gets a little more ubiquitous and a little more ubiquitous. But in a historical blink of an eye, we are going to see just gigantic shifts across the entire workforce. To say nothing of like programmers like us, where
we're safe. We're still safe. I'm going to maintain that
for sure.
I'm going to maintain forever. That. Putting the blinders on. Let me ask you this: 2 years from today, 50% of call workers have been laid off. Are you taking that bet? That yes, in 2 years from now, half that we've reduced the workforce by at least half of call center workers? That's
an interesting question, because I'm working for a company that's making an AI receptionist.
You're one of them.
Well, but like some of these calls and jobs, I don't think need to or should be done by people. It shouldn't be at the expense of a person then having a job. Like, find something else for those people to do. But 2 years from now,
2
half
years.
of call centers, I'd say, and so like this
Half
is
of
my
the
XYZ
workforce.
thing again.
Yeah.
It's half of tier 1 support.
Yes.
I think can be handled by large language model based agents in the next couple of years. I think that that's super doable. 2 years from now, yes. This year, maybe no, but let's call it end of 2027.
Yeah.
I think half of tier 1 call centers could, if not necessarily already will have been replaced.
I agree. I don't know what we accomplished there, but yeah. So basically, they are coming for we agree that it's coming for our jobs. We don't know exactly when. The timeline is fuzzy, and it could be extended a lot. I also wouldn't be shocked if it takes 10 years. But talk about a 10-year timeline, and it's like, okay, yes. And what is time? Time is
10-year
relative.
timeline, what's left is sort of my question at this point. Because these individual systems are so powerful on their own. We're seeing, it passes the Turing test. It could pass the bar exam. It could do this. It could do that. Like all of these individual capacities, yet that isn't currently translating into, and it can do a person's entire actual job. Stay tuned for next episode. I've got a doozy for you on that. But it isn't able to do people's jobs yet, despite seeming so capable on an individual chat basis.
Well, I think the problem there is companies are overstating their progress and in AI, and they're forecasting super aggressively. And I think part of that goes to...
It's about adoption as opposed to the actual use and benefit from it.
Well, going back to our earlier thing of Uber coming out and saying, hey, we're losing all of our money, but you should still invest in us. And you mentioned Tesla. Oh, but yeah, all these new laws are horrible for us, but our stock should go up. It's like part of how our economy works is you have to project towards the future. You've got to come out and tell this vision of how, we're going to take over the world. It seems to be like a fundamental part of capitalism that you must project how we will reign supreme in the future, even though
will continue forever, unabated.
Yes. I don't know if you saw this. Apple was actually sued, and I don't know how strong the lawsuit is, but for overstating their AI progress, because they too came out and said, no, the next version of Siri is going to be incredible, and it's going to be out. I think it's now like a year ago, and we've had nothing. Siri's still the same pile of dog. Insert expletive. That's a better word. There that it has been for the last 10 years. I don't trust Siri to set a timer. And yeah,
right. You said that.
It's true. It's true. But apparently, yeah,
I started
they
setting up Home Assistant. I really want to give. What if I had my own local large language model? Because we've talked about the future is both these huge models that anyone's allowed to pay money to access, and then one that you can have yourself. And so I'm trying to start putting this together. It's not as easy as I would have thought yet, but I'm trying some stuff out.
I mean, maybe what you need to do is the same thing that Apple's doing. It's basically confirmed that Apple. Right. So Apple has an internal team trying to build the next version of Siri, which apparently they've been working on for years now, and it can't get past the quality control. And honestly, Apple's quality control hasn't been that great recently, so it must be really bad. But they're finally saying, okay, the next version of Siri most likely is going to be either a model from OpenAI or a model from Anthropic. And apparently they're leaning towards Anthropic.
Apple isn't one of the large language model players in the game. They just aren't. And so why would they be the primary provider of the large language model smarts?
I think it makes sense. They've got all the money in the world. Kind of literally. And so I want to get some praise to Apple. There's some requirements that they're having in order to do this. One is that they need to be able to run it on their own servers. It needs to run on Apple Silicon. So they are making OpenAI and Anthropic train a model to run specifically on their Apple Silicon. Because one thing that Apple does do right, it seems, is the privacy angle. That they're not sharing your data everywhere. That they are running everything in these secure enclaves where literally they don't have access to your data. The encryption key exists on your device. So that's a positive. It seems like it's going to be Claude. You love Claude. I love Claude too. I do tend to use the OpenAI models before, but I'm also a patron of the Saint Claude. So
Saint Claude.
Saint Claude.
If it's 2 years or so before half of tier 1 support is AI, how many years before we have our first ordained saint?
AI saint?
Yeah, AI saint, a robo saint.
Because technically, ChatGPT has already ordained me in one of my previous conversations. But that's not what you're talking about.
I don't want to know. I don't want to know. Otherwise, we're getting you AI psychosis.
I think it happens the moment it all becomes self-aware. And if you want to know when that moment it happens, all you got to do is tune in to They Might Be Self-Aware with Hunter Powers and Daniel Bishop, now on twice a week. You can watch us on YouTube. You can listen to us anywhere. You can find podcasts, whether it be, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, your favorite podcast directory. We are there, streaming live in color. We're in color now, too. I don't know if I told you that. The psychosis is taking over. We better wrap this one up.
We are everywhere. Hunter.
Daniel is actively seeking medical assistance, but we will try to make it back again next week because you have been listening to
They might be self-aware.